You are watching Toon Matrix. Spoilers ahead, watch out.
The chapter opens with a horrifying scene as a man is repeatedly tortured by having his head forced underwater. Bound tightly to a chair with no chance of escaping, it's soon revealed that the victim is actually an undercover police officer. A group of gang members surround him, mocking him without mercy. They sarcastically ask if he really believed that getting a tattoo would hide his identity and keep him from getting caught. To them, his entire undercover act is nothing more than something straight out of a movie. Among the gang sits a yellow-haired man, casually holding a knife while wearing a sinister grin. He turns toward his boss and asks what they should do with the captured officer. The boss remains silent for a moment, calmly sitting beside the swimming pool with a fishing rod in his hands. After letting the tension build, he finally speaks in a cold, emotionless voice. If the man is really a cop, then there's only one thing left to do: they have to kill him. As he rises from his seat, a massive demon tattoo stretching across his back is revealed, making his already intimidating presence even more terrifying. The yellow-haired man immediately becomes uneasy. He nervously points out that killing a police officer could attract too much attention and create unnecessary trouble for the gang. Without responding, the boss calmly walks over, snatches the knife from his hand, and steps in front of the tied officer. Still trying to defuse the situation, the yellow-haired man quickly suggests that he'll deal with the cop quietly himself. But before he can even finish speaking, the boss suddenly drives the knife straight into his body. The yellow-haired man's eyes widen in disbelief as he struggles to comprehend what just happened. While he screams in agony, the boss grabs him by the mouth and coldly repeats that if someone is a cop, then they have to die. Then, with a terrifying expression on his face, he reveals an even bigger surprise. The yellow-haired man is an undercover cop as well. There had been 2 undercover officers hiding within the gang all along. Did he seriously think he could fool everyone forever just by pretending to be one of them? Tears fill the wounded man's eyes as the pain overwhelms him, and he desperately wonders how his identity was exposed. At that moment, the tied officer nervously smiles before admitting that he was the one who told the boss everything. He claims that the yellow-haired man had always been a born cop from the very beginning. As for himself, he insists that he has already abandoned his life as a police officer and begs for another chance to be reborn as a member of their crew instead. The boss quietly accepts his words and welcomes him into the family. Meanwhile, the wounded undercover officer can do nothing but curse at the man who betrayed him. Ignoring his cries, the boss walks toward the tied officer and calmly tells him that he was born a cop as well. If he truly wants to be reborn as one of them, then the first step is simple: he has to die. The moment those words leave his mouth, the boss throws a devastating punch that launches the tied officer backward into the swimming pool. He then declares that although he hates cops, there is something he despises even more. Pulling out a cigarette, he explains that the people he truly cannot stand are those who secretly plot behind his back and wait for the perfect opportunity to betray him. As he quietly smokes, his subordinates begin pouring gasoline all around the area. After taking one final puff, he casually tosses away the half-burned cigarette, saying that he'll let the officer die as a member of the royal faction since he had done good work for them. Within moments, flames engulf the entire place as the boss and his men calmly walk away through the blazing inferno. Before the scene ends, we're left with one final image of the boss confidently standing amidst the raging fire, looking every bit like a monster. The story then shifts to a completely different location, where a traffic police constable is questioning a visibly drunk driver and repeatedly asks him to tell the truth. This is where we're introduced to our protagonist, the heavily built Ma Seok-do, a traffic police constable from Seoul Junction Police Station. Holding out a breathalyzer, Ma Seok-do asks the driver to take the test, but the man angrily pushes it aside. He insists that he hasn't been drinking and demands to know why the officer keeps bothering him. Ignoring the excuses, Ma Seok-do calmly leans toward the driver's window and points out that he can clearly smell alcohol. Hearing that, the drunk driver immediately panics. Instead of cooperating, he suddenly slams on the accelerator and tries to escape. Even as the car speeds away, Ma Seok-do refuses to let go and continues hanging on to the moving vehicle. Racing down the road at nearly 80 kilometers per hour, the driver is left completely stunned that the officer is still holding on. Finally losing his patience, Ma Seok-do tightens his fist and delivers a devastating punch straight through the open window. The blow instantly knocks the driver unconscious. Letting go of the moving car, Ma Seok-do safely lands on the road while the out-of-control vehicle veers off course and crashes into a nearby electric pole. Looking at the wreck, he casually remarks that he was only trying to stop the car, but somehow ended up stopping the driver instead. The scene then shifts to a drinking house, where Ma Seok-do is being scolded over the chaos caused by the incident. The man lecturing him is revealed to be his direct superior, Traffic Division Chief Lee Sang-yong. The moment Ma Seok-do tries to explain himself, the chief splashes soju right across his face. He demands that Ma Seok-do at least address him as chief, and angrily asks why he has to beat up every drunk driver he encounters. According to him, their department barely has any budget left because they're constantly paying for everything Ma Seok-do ends up breaking. Unable to hold back his frustration any longer, Ma Seok-do slams his fist onto the table and demands to be transferred to field duty. He reminds Chief Lee that he was promised a position in the Major Crimes Unit, yet he's still stuck working as a traffic police officer. The chief immediately fires back, saying that Ma Seok-do is the one who keeps creating major incidents everywhere he goes. He's already overwhelmed dealing with a dangerous organization known as the Royal Faction, and the last thing he needs is another headache. The moment Ma Seok-do hears the name Royal Faction, his curiosity is instantly piqued. He asks what kind of group they are, but Chief Lee brushes him off, saying it's none of his concern. Refusing to let it go, Ma Seok-do bangs the table once again and insists on hearing the truth. Realizing he won't give up, the chief finally decides to explain. According to Chief Lee, the Royal Faction is a powerful crime syndicate that emerged after the government's 1990 declaration of war on crime. Back then, the infamous Byomchun faction was dismantled, but several of its key members escaped and later joined forces to establish the Royal Faction. That alone would have been dangerous enough, but their influence extends even further. Intelligence suggests that Chairman Jang of the Wooseok Group has been secretly backing them from the shadows. He's a man with enormous political influence, someone who practically has half of the country's powerful figures in the palm of his hand. While the Royal Faction handles everything in the shadows, Chairman Jang protects them in broad daylight. With that kind of support, they've become an entirely different breed compared to ordinary criminal organizations. According to Chief Lee, they barely have any weaknesses left. Even worse, 2 undercover police officers were recently sent to infiltrate the syndicate, but both of them were discovered and eliminated before they could accomplish their mission. Hearing that, Ma Seok-do immediately asks what happened afterward. Surely the police launched an investigation if 2 officers were killed. Chief Lee lets out a frustrated sigh before explaining that every investigation hits the same wall. As long as Chairman Jang continues shielding the Royal Faction, they have nothing to fear. Every time the police try to make a move, orders from higher up force them to back off, making it nearly impossible to touch the organization. Chief Lee then reveals another shocking detail. The man responsible for killing the undercover officers is none other than the boss of the Royal Faction himself, Jo Tae-seop. Not only is he the leader of the organization, but he's also widely regarded as the strongest fighter among all of its members. The problem is that Tae-seop rarely shows himself in person. He always sends someone else to handle business on his behalf, making it incredibly difficult for the police to gather evidence or catch him. The moment Ma Seok-do hears the name, something clicks in his mind. He asks if the chief is talking about the same Jo Tae-seop who used to box and came from a wealthy family. Chief Lee confirms his suspicion and asks if he knows him personally. A nostalgic smile crosses Ma Seok-do's face as old memories begin flooding back. He explains that they attended the same high school, although he saw Tae-seop far more often inside the boxing ring than inside a classroom. Back then, Jo Tae-seop was practically unbeatable. He finished his career with 26 victories and a single draw, never once tasting defeat. He dominated the Rookie of the Year tournament before eventually becoming champion. Then, without warning, the rising boxing star suddenly vanished one day. As those memories play out, we see a younger Ma Seok-do sitting inside the locker room with bruises covering his face while watching Tae-seop celebrate another championship victory. It's clear that the two crossed paths many times in the ring, and judging from Ma Seok-do's battered appearance, those fights never ended in his favor. Returning to the present, The now heavily intoxicated Ma Seok laughs to himself before admitting that the only reason he started boxing in the first place was because he wanted to beat the living daylights out of Jo Tae-seop. Instead, life took a completely different turn. Now Tae-seop gets paid to beat people up illegally, while he ends up being scolded afterward. Taking another shot of soju, he jokes that if he'd known things would turn out this way, maybe he should have just become a thug himself. The joke immediately sparks an idea inside Chief Lee's head. His expression suddenly changes as a plan begins forming in his mind. Looking directly at Ma Seok-do, he excitedly asks if he still wants to join the major crimes unit. The scene then shifts to a container yard, where several cars and vans are parked nearby. 3 gang members stand outside one of the containers, smoking cigarettes while complaining about their responsibilities. According to the intelligence gathered by the police, the royal faction has recently recruited a new face. Up until now, the organization was built almost entirely around powerful fighters, but they've recently brought in a strategist to help expand their operations. Moments later, a luxury car pulls up to the container yard. The 3 men immediately straighten themselves and respectfully greet the man stepping out of the vehicle. He's introduced as Seo Sang-yeop, the royal faction's 3rd advisor. Calmly handing his blazer to one of his subordinates, Seo asks whether anything unusual has happened. After hearing that everything is under control, he dismisses them and heads toward the container, warning them not to let anyone enter. If they fail, they'll pay with their lives. As Seo opens the container door, it's revealed that the room inside is filled with women wearing heavy makeup. Sitting down like a king on his throne, he begins assigning each woman to different locations. The younger girls are sent to the front club, another group is assigned to the tea house, while the older women are simply told to head over to Pumpkin Night on their own. Once everyone has received their assignments, Seo dismisses the group and finally lights a cigarette, hoping to clear his mind. Taking a long drag from his cigarette, Seo Sang-yeop can't help but complain about his situation. Despite graduating from Y University, he's now spending his days assigning girls to different venues instead of putting his education to good use. Clearly irritated, he singles out a woman named Miss Kim, who nervously sits beside him. Wrapping an arm around her shoulder, Seo casually remarks that he could introduce her to a cosmetic expert. Miss Kim forces an awkward smile, clearly uncomfortable with the sudden attention. But before she can even react, Seo's intentions become far more disturbing. He shamelessly demands that she sleep with him. Terrified, Miss Kim desperately tries to avoid him, and her resistance finally snaps the last thread of Seo's patience. Just as he's about to threaten her further, a voice suddenly crackles through the radio. One of the guards reports that a new group of girls has arrived for an interview. Already annoyed, Seo lashes out, telling them to stop bothering him over such trivial matters. However, the guard quickly adds one more detail: the new girls are incredibly well built. Hearing that, Seo instinctively glances at Miss Kim before immediately changing his mind. His expression lights up as he orders the guards to send the newcomers inside without wasting another second. The container door swings open, and a blonde woman confidently walks into the room, but there's something strangely unnatural about her muscular physique. She carries a baseball bat while trying to act flirtatious. Seo removes his glasses and rubs his eyes, wondering if he's seeing things correctly. Before he can process what he's looking at, several more muscular Barbies with the exact same appearance walk into the room. They look almost identical, making the entire scene feel bizarre. Just as Seo is about to scream in confusion, the leader suddenly drops the act and reveals the truth. They aren't women looking for work at all. They're members of the rival Snakehead clan. Seo's face immediately turns pale. Completely caught off guard, he can't understand how they managed to get past all of his security. The leader calmly explains that they had already planted someone on the inside to open the door for them. On top of that, the heavily tinted windows worked in their favor by preventing anyone outside from noticing what was happening inside. As for the guards stationed around the container yard, they've already been taken care of. Although panic begins creeping across his face, Seo desperately tries to keep his composure. He warns them not to push their luck. Unfortunately for him, the Snakehead clan has come fully prepared. They remind him of everything the royal faction has stolen from them: their territory, their businesses, and even the women working under them. Stepping forward with an intimidating glare, the leader coldly declares that Seo Sang-yeop is going to die today. Fear completely takes over Seo. He immediately hides behind Miss Kim, using her as a human shield while frantically insisting that everything was done under Jo Tae-seop's orders. He even attempts to buy his way out of the situation before negotiations can completely fall apart. Before he can finish another sentence, one of the gang members violently shoves an ashtray into his mouth, instantly silencing him. Staring him straight in the eyes, the snakehead leader declares that no amount of money can save him now. The price of buying him off is his life. Once his body is discovered, it will serve as a warning to the entire royal faction. Raising the microphone stand, the leader prepares to deliver the killing blow. But before the attack can land, an enormous hand suddenly grabs his tattooed arm. At that exact moment, the room is filled with the most painfully off-key, ear-piercing singing imaginable blasting through the microphone. Everyone freezes. Standing there in a bright pink outfit is an unbelievably muscular Barbie, completely immersed in his own terrible karaoke performance. Completely oblivious to the life-or-death situation unfolding around him, he continues singing with absolute confidence. That mysterious pink Barbie is none other than Ma Seok-do. Just as he's about to reach what he believes is the best part of the song, one of the Snakehead members suddenly realizes something is wrong. The pink Barbie isn't one of them. Before their leader can even react, Ma Seok's fist crashes straight into his face, sending him flying to the floor in a single devastating blow. As if introducing himself for a job interview, Ma Seok casually explains that he came looking for a high-paying helper position. Judging by the current situation though, it looks like the boss is the one who needs help instead. This was all part of Chief Lee's operation. Using the information left behind by the fallen undercover officers, the police learned that Seo Sang-yeop would be targeted by the Snakehead clan. Their plan was simple: save Seo's life, earn his trust, and use him as Ma Seok's stepping stone into the royal faction. The fight erupts instantly as another blonde thug charges in from behind, hoping to catch Seok-do off guard. But Ma Seok calmly raises his guard and blocks the attack without breaking a sweat. Before the thug can react, he fires back with a single crushing punch that sends the muscular Barbie crashing straight to the floor. With an irritated expression, Seok-do casually asks whether beating up all these people will earn him any bonus points for the interview. Then, without a second thought, he slams the microphone onto the table, snapping it clean in half. A deafening screech of feedback echoes throughout the container, forcing everyone else to cover their ears. Everyone except Ma Seok. Completely unfazed, he slowly begins walking forward like the final boss of the battlefield. The real massacre begins. One after another, every member of the Snakehead clan rushes toward him, only to be knocked down with a single punch. No matter how tough they look, none of them can withstand even one clean hit from Ma Seok. Realizing they can't beat him head-on, the Snakehead leader sneaks up from behind and wraps both arms around Seok-do in a desperate bear hug. A confident grin spreads across his face, believing he's finally managed to restrain the monster. Ma Seok, however, doesn't look the slightest bit concerned. In fact, he calmly asks if that's all he's got. At that exact moment, another thug charges in from the front, swinging a baseball bat with all his strength. Instead of panicking, Seok-do simply lifts one of his high heels and stomps directly onto the attacker's foot. A painful scream immediately echoes throughout the room. While the man is distracted by the unbearable pain, Ma Seok effortlessly catches the incoming bat with one hand. At the same time, he drives a devastating back elbow into the face of the thug, restraining him from behind. With the bear hug broken, he immediately follows up by delivering another earth-shattering punch to the attacker standing in front of him. The impact sends the man flying across the room before crashing onto the floor. The outcome of the battle is decided within minutes. The once confident Snakehead clan members are now scattered all over the room, lying unconscious in their ridiculous disguises. Sometime later, after changing back into normal clothes, Ma Seok prepares to leave. Just then, Seo Sang-yeop approaches him with a grateful smile and sincerely thanks him for saving his life. Seo admits that it's hard to believe someone applying for a mere helper position could possess such overwhelming strength. Curious, he asks whether Ma Seok-do belongs to any organization or crew. Without hesitation, Ma Seok dismisses the idea. He claims that he used to have a crew, but those days are long behind him. Now he's nothing more than a lone wolf looking to make some quick money. He insists that he only stepped in because he couldn't stand watching several people gang up on one man. After all, he's a man who still values honor. Seo quietly studies him for a moment. Unlike the other members of the royal faction, Seo Sang-yeop is the brains behind the organization. He's ambitious, calculating, and always looking for ways to strengthen his own position. After narrowly surviving the Snakehead clan's assassination attempt, one thing has become painfully clear to him. He needs muscle. And standing right in front of him is the perfect candidate. Letting out a quiet sigh, Seo finally makes up his mind. Looking directly at Ma Seok-do, he asks whether he'd be interested in a different kind of interview. This is exactly the opportunity Chief Lee and Ma Seok were waiting for. Even so, Ma Seok knows he can't accept too easily. Putting on a troubled expression, he politely declines the offer, claiming that he's already washed his hands of that kind of life. Just as he's about to walk away, Seo calls out to him one last time. He tells Ma Seok-do that if washing his hands is the problem, then he can wash them with money instead. Promising that he'll earn 100 times more than he does now, Seo tries one final time to lure him in. Completely unaware that he's walking straight into the police's trap, Seo lights another cigarette and begins proudly talking about the organization he works for. With a confident smirk, he finally reveals its name: the Royal Faction. Then, he pulls out another cigarette and extends it toward Ma Seok. This isn't just an ordinary cigarette. It's an invitation to join the Royal Faction. Everything has gone exactly according to Chief Lee's plan. Without showing the slightest hesitation, Ma Seok reaches forward and accepts the cigarette from Seo's hand. Placing it between his lips, he smiles before asking if he should start calling Seo his boss from now on. And just like that, Ma Seok-do leaves his police uniform behind and steps onto the razor-thin path of an undercover officer, officially beginning his dangerous mission to infiltrate the royal faction from the inside.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon.